All right, ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to show you an additional method on how to combine like terms. Again, it says lesson 3.2, adding linear expressions. I can simplify expressions by adding like terms. Now, my preference is what I like to call the horizontal method. So again, we're just going to go ahead and list everything out with the boxes or the circles, and then we combine our like terms. But there is an alternative. So I'll actually show you both ways again. For a linear expression, remember it's a line, linear. The exponent, it has to be 1. Nonlinear, that could have an exponent of 2, 3, all the way 5 like it says there. So it looks like that we're going to be focusing on linear expressions, which means just an exponent of 1. So right here, again, I would do the following. So I'm going to show you one more time the horizontal method, and then we'll talk about the vertical method. So horizontal, let me change it to the nice writing pen. This would simply be x, a -2. There's no number in front, right? So I don't have to even use my distributive property. So it's just a positive 3x and a positive 8. We do remember there's a 1 there. So I would combine my like terms. A 1x plus a 3x is a 4x. And a -2 and a positive 8 is a positive 6. So again, that's my preferred method, but want to show you an additional method, again, the vertical method. It just says line up your like terms. So that's a form of identifying your like terms right away, is by having them line up. So I'll put a little 1 here again. So do you notice the x's line up and the constants line up? So a 1x plus a 3x is a 4x. Well, that's what I had. And a -2 plus 8 is a positive 6. Well, that's what I had as well. So either method is acceptable to help you find the simplified expression combining like terms. So looking at this one here, again, I'm going to go ahead and write horizontal, and then over here, vertical. Again, horizontal just says x stays the same, positive 3 stays the same. It's a plus sign, so that is definitely beneficial. Positive 2x and -1, 1x. So I go ahead and combine my like terms. 1x plus 2x is 3x. Positive 3 subtract 1 is positive 2. So for our vertical, remember, that's going to look like this. X plus 3, and then underneath that's going to be my second term, 2x, a -1. And it's kind of like elementary addition, the way that it's structured. Kind of like your ones place, your tens place, and so on. So a positive 3 adding -1, well, that's going to be a positive 2. So I'm starting at the back, kind of like elementary addition. And then I've got a 1x plus a 2x. Yeah, that's a 3x. So exactly the same answer. Both methods work. All right, let's try example 3. Horizontal and vertical. Now, when it's addition, it's definitely easier than a subtraction problem. And we'll see that in just a bit. All right, so I've got -8z, I'm going to put a little mark there, positive 4, and then positive 8z, and -7. Now remember, if there was, like, let's say a 2 here in front of this parentheses, I'd obviously have to do my distributive property first. So I'm going to go ahead and combine or identify like terms first. So -8z plus 8z, that just cancels each other out. Yeah. So I really have a positive 4 subtract a 7, so that just gives me a -3. On the vertical format again, I'm going to go ahead and line up my like terms. It's addition. So a 4 and a -7 gives me a -3. -8z and 8z, well, that just cancels out, so I'm going to leave that alone. So leave it blank. Don't put a z there, because if you put a z there, that really means 1z. Just like I saw over here on the horizontal method, they actually cross each other out, so they disappear. Both answers, -3. All right, here we go. Distributive property. So this is kind of why I like the horizontal method here. 2 multiplied by negative 7.5z. Well, that's going to be negative 15z. And then 2 times 3 is going to be a positive 6. Now remember, there's a 1 there, 1 times 5z, so I really don't need to focus on that, right? So right here, again, notice how I put the little mark with the z's, because my 2's kind of look like my z's, is I can just go ahead and combine my like terms, after I identify them, of course, if I'm using the horizontal method. So a negative 15z and a positive 5z is going to give me a negative 10z. And then a positive 6 subtracted 2 gives me a positive 4. So that's the horizontal. Over here we've got the vertical. So I would say negative 15z plus 6. And then positive 5z subtract 2. And again, addition. Positive 6 and a negative 2 gives me a positive 4. Negative 15z and positive 5z gives me a negative 10z. There we go. All right, this one right here, again, my preference is horizontal. So 4 subtract n stays the same. We can write a 1n though. 2 multiplied by negative 5n gives me negative 10n. And 2 multiplied by 3 gives me a 6. Combine my like terms. A negative 1n and a negative 10n gives me a negative 11n. A 4 and a 6 gives me a 10. Again, combining like terms is key. And again, we're just dealing with linear expressions on these examples. So let's see here. Oh yeah, vertical. So that would be, now this kind of requires a little bit of restructuring. That's another disadvantage towards vertical. Because again, it says 4 subtract n, but if I want to do vertical, I need to write negative 1n or negative n, add 4. Because when I line it up, it's going to be negative 10n and positive 6. 4 plus 6 is 10. Negative 1n and negative 10n is negative 11n. All right, but if you notice, the addition, not too difficult. It's when we get to the subtraction that's a little bit more complicated. So with the subtraction, again, it's really using adding the opposite. So if you notice right here, when they structure it as subtraction, if you add the opposite, the x becomes positive and the 6 becomes negative. And out here, we're going to change to addition sign, right? So change to addition sign. The opposite of negative x is positive x. The opposite of 6 is negative 6. So that's your vertical method there for problem A. So on problem B, I got to use my distributive property. So that's going to be 7y plus 5 and negative 8y, and it's going to be plus 6. You know what? It's not even set up right because it's not just a simple subtraction. It's negative 2. Well, that's kind of silly. So I'm going to go ahead and just stick with horizontal on this one here. So 7y subtract 8y, that's going to be negative 1y, but remember we said let's just write it as negative y. And then 5 plus 6 is 11. So the subtracting linear expressions really is only kind of helpful if it's a basic subtraction sign, not when it's a subtract 2. Let's see what the next one looks like. All right, so we only have 2 more. All right, so for this one, it could be okay with the vertical method, but we're still going to show both. Let me change back to the pen. All right, so horizontal and vertical. All right, I'm actually going to do the vertical method first this time. All right, so I'm going to line it up. It's going to be m subtract 3. The other one is negative m plus 12, and it's got a subtraction sign here. So this is really what I like to do. So instead of putting a whole nother problem to the right of it, I'm just going to go ahead and practice adding the opposite. So this is tricky here. Subtraction sign becomes addition. Opposite, which means negative, turns to positive. Positive, so I'm going to scribble this out, has to turn to negative. So that's a little bit difficult right there. It's not the cleanest setup either. Which means a negative 3 and a negative 12 gives me a negative 15. A 1m and a 1m gives me a 2m. All right, so we know the answer based off vertical. Let's see if I can do the same thing with horizontal. Now for the horizontal method, yeah, it just stays m subtract 3. But right here, it's really like I'm distributing a negative 1. So negative 1 multiplied by negative m gives me a positive 1m. A negative 1 multiplied by a positive 12 gives me a negative 12. Hey, let's put a 1 there. Let's combine or identify our like terms. 1m plus 1m is 2m. Negative 3 and negative 12 is negative 15. So again, my suggestion is to stick with horizontal, but if you want to try the vertical, that might be okay. Now this one here, definitely want to do the horizontal method. Negative 2 times c is negative 2c. Negative 2 multiplied by positive 2.5, well, that's going to be negative 5. Negative 5 multiplied by 1.2c, that is going to be negative 6c. And negative 5 multiplied by positive 4 is negative 20. All right, identify. Negative 2c, negative 6c is negative 8c. Identify. Negative 5, negative 20 is negative 25. So again, my suggestion is stick to the horizontal method. If you want to try the vertical, up to you. All right, be awesome. Join me for some homework help. All right, be great.